The Stop the War coalition has been accused of not allowing Syrian victims of President Bashar al-Assad to speak during a panel discussion about Syria. The event happened on Monday evening in Parliament and was chaired by none other than Diane Abbott. The Stop the War coalition has been criticised for allowing no Syrians on the panel and for reportedly not allowing Syrian activists to speak from the floor. Let's get a flavour of some of the rather heated exchanges.
Invite people for the Kurdish YPG because they're socialists. Because you didn't let me speak, I'll speak. Right? For the YPG, you have them on your platform, and then you lecture us. لا اوعى تكلميني انت بتستعبطي. You told me I'll speak and you didn't, and you lied. Okay? Police, you're getting coppers now? You're getting coppers for us? It's so radical.
You cannot have a meeting in this House of Commons and exclude Syrians who are Democrats and leftists who are civil society organisations.
Some of you, of course, will recognise that was Peter Tatchell there making his point at the end of a little clip there. Joining us now is Mazna, who was from the Syria Solidarity Movement. She was at the meeting on Monday night. Dan, you were talking about Syria, about what to do about Syria, about its future. Why were there no Syrians on the panel?
I chaired the meeting. I didn't determine the panel. But just to say, I did call a Syrian speaker. But as you can see, it was a tricky meeting to chair.
Sure. I'll come on to let's see. You're quite right. I'll come on to that in a second. But so, if it had been up to you, would you have put Syrians on the panel?
If it had been up to me, we would have had a wide-ranging panel. I think.
Why did you chair it then?
Oh, because I feel very strongly that people need to hear the case against bombing Syria. That's why I've got a long-standing commitment.
But not strongly enough that you feel you have to hear from Syrians, whose country it is.
I called a Syrian.
No, but I mean on the panel. That
was the matter for Stop the War. You need to talk to them about that.
And then, how many Syrians did you call from the floor to make a point?
I can't tell who was Syrian, who wasn't, but I certainly, because we had Crispin Blunt came and spoke.
Yeah, he's not Syrian.
I know, but he came and spoke, and because he had to leave, I called speakers after he had spoken, and the first speaker I called was actually a Syrian woman.
So, Mazza, the Syrians were called from the floor, or weren't they?
I am the first Syrian woman who was called, and I was only called because one of the audience pointed at me to be allowed to speak. And then I was interrupted, and then other Syrians were not allowed to speak. And we were obvious who we are. We were at the back, we were shouting, we were waving, we were doing whatever we can to get noticed, because this is about Syria and Syrians' voices should be there.
So did Diane give you a fair hearing or not?
No. And this is all traditional for Stop the War. They don't want to listen to Syrians. If they listen to Syrians, there will be much more, they have a much better information to make decision. But they have this theory about non-intervention, and they want to apply it without information. So if they listen to Syrians, if they do their homework on what's happening on the ground and what we really want, they would have a different position. But they're not even doing that. What Syrians in the UK want is the protection of civilians. This is what we want, this is what we advocate, and we're not asking for imperial powers to come and occupy our country. We want a stop to the killing. And that's not going to happen by political talks. We have years and years and years of political talks that are producing nothing.
Why wouldn't you have listened to that on Monday night?
We all want an end to the killing, but it's not entirely fair to say people haven't done their homework. For the House Commons Foreign Affairs Selection produced a major report, actually, the day after our meeting, and that sets out that whereas we all want to stop the killing, actually the UK coming and bombing Syria in current circumstances will not save lives.
But I'm not clear that that's what Munza is asking. That's not what you're asking for, is it?
Yeah, but the major problem is that they were debating their own question. They were debating bombing ISIS, whether we wanted to say the enemy is Assad. ISIS and the refugee cause is the symptoms of a cancer called the dictatorship.
Well, Munza raises an interesting point, because I was looking at reports from this Stop the War meeting. Andrew Murray is quite a big figure in Stop the War, isn't he?
He is indeed.
He was a chair, or still is the chair?
I don't know. I'm not.
But he's a big figure. And it turns out, actually, this meeting was not really about stopping the war at all. The meeting was about how to defeat ISIS and to support Assad in defeating ISIS.
Well,
so it's not about stopping the war.
No,
it's about helping Assad win the war. That's what it was about.
I don't recognise that description of the meeting. That's certainly.
But that's what Andrew Murray called for.
Well, that is not.
He wanted Assad to defeat ISIS.
Let me be clear, that's not my position. I was one of the first people in the front bench over 2 years ago to call not for bombing Syria. It remains my position, just like Crispin Blunt on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee.
Am I wrong?
It will not happen.
Or did a lot of the Stop the War people, did they want Assad to attack
They want
ISIS?
to make Assad legitimate again and to use it as a tool to stop ISIS. ISIS is like this big tool of throwing sands in the eyes, so you don't see the real problem, which is Assad.
I don't know a single Labour MP that wants to legitimise
Let me just explain to you. ISIS will never be defeated if Assad is still in power. Syrians will never accept Assad still remains in power. And we, the Syrian people, we just want to have a free country, a democratic country, and we deserve that. And the problem is that Stop the War Coalition is very active on refugee cause, very active on Palestine, very active on Iraq. But when it comes to Syria, they ethically fail. Are we not worthy until we drown on your shores?
Thank
this
you
is
for
what
that.
I want to say.
Would it not be, one doesn't have to agree or disagree with what Munza is saying, would it not have been a rather useful Stop the War Coalition event to have heard all that at the event you chaired?
She hasn't got quite to the point.
No. What's the answer to my question?
No.
Would it not have been useful to have heard that?
The event was about the arguments against military intervention. You want to argue for military intervention, which you're perfectly entitled to do. I'm happy.
I'm sorry. The event was to support Assad.
No.
Oh, let me tell you, it was to support Assad. You are shifting the discourse.
I chaired the event.
You are shifting the discourse. Let me please.
wasn't
I don't. That could be. It could be named anything. But what happened really is that you shifted the discourse from arguing to stop Assad from killing civilians to stop ISIS and make Assad legitimate again. And Assad killed 7 times more civilians than ISIS. Let me tell you, Diane, this week, 80 barrel-bound fell in Daraya. And I want to tell you, what do you want to say to people there? People there want protection.
All right, you made your point very clear. Why would you not Stop the War Coalition of people who are pacifist and don't want to go to war and don't want Britain to be throwing its weight around? Why would you not want to listen to that?
We do listen to it. But
you didn't. You stopped them from speaking.
No.
Is it true that at one stage... Did you call the police?
No, I didn't call the police.
But the police were called, were they not?
I don't know about that. I was at the...
Were the police called?
They were called, and one of our members was escorted outside, and I was
why would you
asked
do that?
repeatedly to leave.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, why did you chair a meeting that would let it happen?
Because
Wouldn't a proper radical politician like yourself have said, that's it, I'm not chairing this anymore, I'm joining the protesters?
I was not aware that the police were called. I didn't see the police. If she said the police were called, then she must be. But let me just say one thing. There is not a single solitary line from me on the record or from any other Labour MP that I know of saying that we want to rehabilitate Assad.
No, I understand, but this is
what
not.
you're doing.
But this is not about you, Diane. This is about giving people like Munza a voice.
Other MPs on the panel asked to hear from Syrians, and you didn't allow it to happen.
I'm
sorry.
No, you get to finish on this
the
programme.
Green Party MP asked to hear from Syrians. The Labour MP asked to hear from Syrians, and you didn't allow it to happen. We were there because we wanted our voice to be heard. It's very disrespectful not to discuss our country and not to let Syrians speak.
Well, I hope at least you think the Daily Politics has allowed you to have your voice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.